What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, and of course, we're brought to you by our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. Check them out, 1450 Clements Beach Road, Deptford, New Jersey, right inside the plaza at Deptford. Unbelievable, convenient hours, Monday to Friday, 10 to 8, Saturday, 10 to 6, Sunday, 10 to 5. Also, give them a ring for all their specials, 856-579-8250. And I'm telling you right now, you got golf, you got baseball. Couples are, from what I hear, they're going in, they're looking for rackets. It's tennis season right around the corner. But coaches, baseball coaches, listen, if you need uniforms for your team, league, you can give them a ring, as I alluded to, 856-579-8250. You can ask them about their sponsorship program, how they can help you raise cash for your team or league. And the golf equipment has just been blown off the shelf. So again, you look at some of these other stores, no one really gives cash for the golf or fair trade. You know what? Play It Again Sports, they'll take the gift cards and the coupons. You got a lot of drivers, wedges, and a lot of golf equipment and more. And with that, we welcome in who I'm wondering how his shot has been. Well, perhaps the brackets are still alive. The prop kind enough to join us on this Tuesday and half broken, busted, if you will. But I not a lot of juice to this tournament. I think there was more juice with the women's, obviously, what transpired last night. But hey, listen, at the end of the day, I still think UConn's rolling teams, they're the best team on the men's side. And then we got a little glimpse of last night, LSU and Iowa, which was a good game. I know we'll dive into some of your baseball plays, but just overall thoughts right now. How's the bracket looking and where are you
Oh,
at right now?
a mixed bag. It's tough. Remember, early on, it was chalk city. If you let anything out of the box with a good number, like I mentioned 2 weeks ago with BYU,
Yep.
um, boy, they didn't show up. I thought they would at least get one game, but I got a great number on them. I got a good number on them to get out of the region. It happens. I entered my Calcutta. I got a really good price uh, on Purdue. So how Calcutta's work is, you get dollars for each
Yep.
round that you move on. Usually in those kind of things, a strategy for a top seed, you want to get an undervalued seed as far as the money. You have to try to estimate what the total of the pot will be, and then you want to pay a less percentage than what their market future odds were. Purdue for uh, heartbeat was probably 8-1 to win the whole thing. Then they were 750, and then when things got the market got settled the day before, Purdue was 7-1 to win the whole thing. UConn obviously was the top favorite. Houston was up there also at number 2, and Carolina hovered around tied with Purdue, not because they were as good as they've been in the past or traditional number one when Carolina's number 1 seed. they they had they were the worst 1 seed.
Horrible late
Basically,
game. Horrible late game. Horrible late game decisions. North Carolina shooting these
yeah,
threes.
but they got as far as they were. I mean, they had a good season by maybe not by their metrics or their barometer, but they had
Yeah.
a good season comparable to what compared to their past teams that were really, really, really good. The team that beat Gonzaga and other teams that went deep in the tournament. Obviously, the team that played Kansas was really good. But they beat Duke twice, and
Yep.
Duke is as good as Duke, and we both spoke about that as well too. I got a really, really good number on Duke in my Calcutta, and I got a 40-1 and a 41-1 to win the whole thing, which is basically, if you can get 2 wins. I mean, when you see 40-1, 41-1, 42-1, you see that range. The market's basically telling you they might not win 2 games. This team might not win 2 games because I got a number on Alabama that was 60-1,
Hmm.
58-1, and 60. So that pretty much tells you, you need a little luck. And sure enough, Alabama scrambled a little bit to beat Grand
Yes.
Canyon, and Duke got a little bit lucky. They didn't have to play Wisconsin. They played James Madison. and you knew they were going to hammer James Madison. They basically had the tough game against Houston. And then, like we were speaking off air, once that happened, they got probably the best matchup they could ever hope for to get to a Final Four. They beat NC State like a drum a month ago in NC State. Then they probably played the worst game of the year. It was 11-point favorite on a neutral in the ACC tournament. So, and they closed as a 7-point favorite. Mark a line, they're probably right around a 70, 71%, 70, maybe even 72% favorite to win that game. That's all you can ask for, Rich, when you have a 41 or 42-1, and then you have I got money. I made money in my calculator because they did win 3 games, but that 4th game was worth a good amount. And boy, they just dumped in the first quarter. In the second half, they really played poorly. Give NC State some credit. They're on about as unbelievable a run.
Jimmy V would be smiling.
That's about as unbelievable as run as that. Because remember, that NC State team also won the ACC tournament, which is incredible when you think about it. I mean, Duke wasn't Duke yet, but Virginia had Ralph Sampson, and then you just go right down the line.
And they were down. They were down
good.
double digits late against Pepperdine.
Oh, they just and if you look at that roster for old-time college basketball fans, that team was not. It was an upset for them to beat the Phi Sigma Gamma, for them to beat Virginia, for them to win all those close games in the ACC tournament and in the NCAA tournament. They did have some really good players. Like the next year, Lorenzo Charles became an all-league player. I mean, Derek Wittenberg was a good player.
Terry Gannon was a good player.
Thurl Bailey played in the NBA for
with Utah,
100 years. They had some players, man. And if you look, remember after that, they ended up getting the #1 player in the country, which was Chris Washburn the next year. They ended up getting one of my favorite names of all time. They got Walker Lambiot, the left-handed white guy forward out of ended up transferring back to Northwestern because Valdano ended up after his championship year, he started getting too many good players almost. Yeah. Then he got the Italian connection. He got Gugliotta.
Yeah.
Then he got Chris Corciani. I mean, they were getting too many good players.
Fire and ice. Yeah,
but that championship team. Listen, if you're going to beat a team that's got Akeem and Clyde, you got that's unbelievable.
Bigger upset than what Nova did in '85 against Georgetown.
Well, it's really close, and I'll tell you why it's close because that Nova team had people that don't know. We would know because we're Northeast guys. People who followed the Big East would know. Georgetown played Villanova 2 times every year. They played, Ed Pinckney's from New York. He knew Chris Mullen. They beat the year before in '84, the year Georgetown won the whole thing. And I think the only player they lost off that team was Michael Graham. Remember him? He had the shade. Anybody can just Google and YouTube, that championship game where, Michael Graham might have been, I think he was all tournament. He was the only guy they lost off that team. With Reggie Williams and David Wingate and Ewing. But Nova really only had Ed Pinckney and Howell Presley as pros. People forget Howell Presley turned out to be a decent pro. He's actually probably a better pro than he was college because, but the rest of the starters, Howard Jensen was a midseason replacement.
And he caught fire in the game. He caught fire. That's it.
Yeah, Dwight Wilbur was the guy that was guard and he couldn't shoot, so they got rid of him. And even though Gary McLean didn't make the pros, he was a very good point guard. He just couldn't shoot. He could shoot, but he wasn't a quick shooter. Remember the game before, Memphis State had a great team. Had Keith Lee, and I think was Bowie on that team?
Yeah, 3 out of 4 representing.
Bowie
3
was
out of
on
4.
That team.
Yep, 3 out of 4 Big East
on that team. And Andre Turner. Andre Turner. Andre Turnover. But Turner kicked McLean's rear end in that Final Four game. So it's really, really tough. I still think the Nova is still the bigger upset because Georgetown's probably one of the best teams ever. And that was before the shot clock and before the 3-point line. And when you don't have a shot clock and on a 3-point line, how dominating is your 7'1" center?
Yeah.
I mean, Ewing was by far the best part. And then probably the second best team in the country that year was St. John's, who had 6 NBA players on that team.
You don't have to tell me, man.
On that team, Chris
won the Big East tournament. Won the Big East tournament that year.
Holy smokes! What a great team, Wennington.
He blocked Pearl Washington. Yep.
Pearl Washington,
Mullins, Berry.
He's great, but St. John's had 6 guys. I mean, Mark Jackson was on that team.
Chrissy Mullins, Walter Berry.
You had a great team, and that year people forget the Elite 8 game was with another New York guy, Bobby Cremins, coached Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech had a phenomenal team. They had John Sally, Mark Price.
Yep.
They had Dwayne Farrell. All three guys were
in the pros.
In the pros. They had a guy on the team. They're talking about the NIL guys being too old. They had a Haitian transfer on that Georgia Tech team. His name was Yvonne Joseph. He was 6'11", and all he did was grab rebounds. Georgia Tech had a dynamite team, and they lost by 8 or 10. It was a close game against Georgetown, which would have been very different if there was a 3-point line because we know what Price could do from long distance. They basically shut down Price. Georgetown gets to the Final Four. They actually, obliviate St. John's.
Killed him.
And, Ewing has said this since then. They had to make almost every shot. They still only won by 2. So Nova's is probably the biggest upset as far as playing against the greatest team. But by numbers, the biggest upset is UConn with Rip Hamilton over the Trajan Langdon, Elton Brand Duke team. And I went back and cheated a little bit. I went back and looked at that team. Unbelievable. They went 16-0 in the ACC, Richie. 16-0 in the ACC. No game was close. Carolina was top 10 or top 12 ranked. They didn't have a perfect Carolina team. I think Ed Cota was their point guard. I think Ronald Curry was on the team. They had a good team. They were 12th, 13th ranked in the country. And they just woodshedded them twice by 20 on the road. Killed them. The only game they lost in a Christmas tournament or preseason to Cincinnati by a basket. I mean, that's as close as you're going to get to undefeated. I remember, of course, from numbers and from a betting point of view, they were 300 plus to get out of the East that year. Think about that. Comparable, 300, 330. I think the next time somebody was like that was the undefeated Kentucky team with Calipari. I think they were like 280 or 290. You're 330 to get out of your region. That means you're going to kill the region. Sure enough, they did. They did play a really good Michigan State team in the Final Four. Michigan State won the next year. They had a really good team. Duke was a nip and tuck game. And the reason this stands in my head is because I had UConn that year. I wanted to pick a team that had a shot, and they were the second or third longest shot. Kentucky, I believe, that year was about 6-1. And UConn that year with Rip Hamilton was about 9-1. So my bet was really to get to the championship game. I buy back some Duke, and then I play UConn plus the 9. The only way I can get screwed is if DuConn. If UConn wins the whole game, I lose a little bit. Sure enough, UConn wins the whole game. If Duke wins between 1 and 9, I get the enchilada. Not only I get the enchilada, Richie, I get the whole meal. I get everything. But it was a fun tournament. But for numbers, they were 9.5, which Nova was only plus 8 or 8.5.
What?
And Valvano's NC State team was only about plus 8 or 9.
What about Duke UNLV? Duke UNLV, not 90, 91 when UNLV won 45 in a row.
It was 8 between 8 and 9, depending on where it closed. So it closed like 8 or. But again, there was a lot of people that said nobody gave Duke a chance. I didn't look at it as a team that
Got killed.
got beat by 30. I looked at it as a players that were a year older and a year better on Duke. I said, I remember Christian Laettner was Larry Johnson in a lot of polls was player of the year.
Yep.
Shaq was player, had a lot of juice of being, oh my gosh, look how good this guy is down here at LSU. And then Laettner was right there. Laettner was as good as anybody. So I remember thinking, Duke's good. This is an overlay.
By the way, they only won by 2, by the way. Anderson Hunt missed a 3.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, that year, that's another team that went through. They had a tough game that year. They went and played at Arkansas that year, one LB team. And Arkansas had 3 pros. They had Todd Day was on that team. They had the big center, Oliver Miller. Yep. And they had another group. Listen, it was a good team. And it was never fun having to win on the road in Arkansas.
Right.
And they went there and just waxed them. And they played a weak division. They crushed everybody else. And I remember that year they stacked that region. They put Georgetown in UNLV's region that year, Rich. They played in the 1-8 game. And that team is Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo. Mourning fouls out in that game. And it was a close game. They played nip and tuck. And then, of course, I think they stuck a decent Ball State team in there, and they waxed them. So, listen, UNLV's the best team to never win back-to-back. Georgetown's probably number 2, but it's an upset, but it wasn't. Believe it or not, it's not, numbers-wise, it was not as big as upset as the UConn game. It's close.
Right.
And, of course, if you look back at that Duke team now, there's a lot of pros on that team. Hurley doesn't get the accident. He's going to be a decent pro. He's going to be at least Scott Skiles-ish. So, now we segue that into, can anybody beat UConn this year?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. 11 and a half, 12-point favorite.
It's an unbelievably high number. If they play NC State, it's going to be like 15 or something. If it's possible, NC State can somehow beat my team that I'm rooting hard for now, because
the team I told you to steer clear of because they've broken my heart every year.
Well, I think, did I say to the show my weird rationale was, remember Virginia? Virginia got bounced. They were the laughing stock. Tony Bennett, people look at his style, blah, blah, blah. And he comes back. He got a lot of breaks the next year, but you need breaks. If you're going to lose to a 16 seed, big breaks are going against you. If you're going to a national championship or even make a Final Four, you're going to need some breaks also. Purdue didn't have a close game until the Tennessee game. And I think they catch a break not having to play Duke or Houston here.
Agree.
And they're going to have a hard time with Edey. I rewatched the Tennessee game, and people complained about the fouls, and they called way less than they could have. Guys, what do you do with a 7'5" guy?
Even when you double, he makes the right pass. They kick it out. You got perimeter shooters.
Maybe you can deny the ball or make him not catch it deep.
No.
Jay Wright said something on the panel, one of these things. It's right, because he only gets the ball from his right side. So
the shoulder. Yep.
Because he doesn't like to go right, because he's got to go with his left hand, and he's not athletic enough to pivot back.
Yep.
So he catches the ball from the right side so he can go left and do that little baby hook. But how do you force him out? Because if you're going to gamble, denying the ball, forcing him out, then you leave the 3-pointers open. That's what teams did earlier this year.
Yeah.
And that's why they're the best 3-point percentage shoot. They shot 3 of 15 against Tennessee. They're not going to shoot 3 of 15 against NC State. NC State's in trouble in this game. And who cares? The coach is going to get their free roll. You talk about house money. This is the whole neighborhood money. This guy was fired. The coach at NC State was gone. If Virginia fouls up 3, NC State lose the game. They hit a miracle 3-point banker to tie it. They end up beating Virginia, or else that coach is fired. So no one's going to remember if they lose tonight, this week, to Purdue by 25, people are going to remember that they made the Final Four.
Yeah, it's a
Similar
great
with
run.
Alabama,
It's a great run.
similar with Alabama. As long as Alabama doesn't lose, by 100.
Yeah.
But even then, there's people that still talk in this area from the, when Penn made the Final Four against, Michigan State. Michigan State crushed them with Magic Johnson. But think about it. Penn made a Final Four. You're like, wow. They weren't favored. When you're not favored to do it and you make the Final Four, it's fun. Now, you'd like to see Alabama come out and just absolutely just try to be unconscious from three.
Yeah.
Because
They're going to live and die by that.
Sure. It's the only shot that they have. If they can come out and shoot 9 of 13, 10 of 15 out of the gate and kind of force UConn to make some adjustments, that's the only shot that they have. If you notice UConn's numbers in the regular season, in these tournaments, they're beating teams by a lot more than anybody can project.
I think they wax them, man. I mean, people were looking at the Illinois game, and I was like, look at this line. They're going to beat them by 20-something odd points. I just think they're just on a different, and I watched a lot of UConn.
They are. They're on a different level. I mean, the loss to Seton Hall, they were missing a play. They lose to Marquette. It was really a scheduling issue. They lose to Kansas when everybody was healthy. Kansas, but it was down there. If they play a best of 5 or even a best of 3,
and that's it. That's with their 3 losses,
and that's it. I mean, but they're built for this. You can just tell these games aren't even close. So they'll probably, I can see, even if Alabama gets hot, everything falls right for them. I still think they're going to lose by 10. If they don't get hot, they're going to lose by 40.
So what do you do with that number then? How would you play both games respectively? I mean, it sounds as though you like Purdue money line. You like Purdue with the points.
Well, if you can get UConn, if you can get a good number, like I saw some weird number of UConn, it's definitely a mistake. So I hit it a bunch of times.
Single digits.
UConn was minus 170 to win two games. So that's assuming, so they're roughly, well, as an 11.5 point favorite, probably like 6-1 or something like that for this game. If the 20 or the 15% chance or 20% chance that NC State has to pull off an upset, they play NC State, they're going to be 90-something% to win. So that number all of a sudden becomes good, but they're going to be at least 7 against Purdue. I'm hoping
if they play NC State, they're 15.5 point favorites.
Oh yeah. They'll be big favorite. So most likely, I guesstimate there's about a 75% chance both teams are going to win, UConn and Purdue. So let's say UConn and Purdue. What's the line? I think it'll be 7, maybe more. I think 7's about right. If they make it 6, because it'll all rely on, Edey can match the rebounding. The best if they can create a game where UConn's won it, shot, and done.
Yeah. Not extra buckets, not offensive rebounds, second chances.
And then offensively, they have to get some open shot, or they have to get some shots that they can knock down. And it could be interesting, like stranger things that happen. 7-8 point favorites. It's that piece there, that 6 to 8. Syracuse in 2003. Remember, they were dogs in both games in their Final Four run. They beat Kansas to win it all, I believe. But they were dogs in both games. I think they were. I don't think they were the worst seed, but I think it was at 2003. I believe that's the Carmelo Anthony run.
Yeah, Melo.
Right? Yep. So that's the Melo run.
Hakeem Work.
Yeah, that's the Work run. So they were dogs, but not egregious dogs. It wasn't like they were ridiculous. But I think they were 5.5 or 6 in that championship game. And, you could make a case for that line to be. Of course, you look at the futures, you could figure it out. I'm kind of I don't want to cheat that way. I'm just doing it off.
Yeah,
off
but
my head.
you got one player that's really offensive, to base their whole offense, since you say it around Horn. You neutralize him.
You got a shot. If
Yeah.
you have a shot. Uh, Weird things happen in championship games. It's only one
Always,
game. It's
always.
only one game. You
Little
get a
run,
big
bounce of the
ball.
ball, foul
You get
trouble
and
early.
Edie's known to foul guys out anyway. If they start calling like the real fouls, guys pulling on his shirt,
Yep.
he's trying to get position. Guys are leaning on him. How about when he catches the ball and he's thinking about what he's going to do?
Yep,
He says,
yep.
let me take a dribble. Guys go in and they foul him. I mean, they had an early block shot with Tennessee, and they were like, "Oh, rejected." You slow mo. That's not a rejection. What's he jumping 15 feet in the air? He hit Edie's hand. So people are complaining, "Oh, well, it's a slower game because of that." But I actually like it. It brings me back to when, the big guys mattered. Remember that shows you how unlucky, in a sense, Ewing was, because he was really close to having 3 titles. He could have beat Jordan's UNC teams, the one year. Then they beat Phi Sigma Jam, and then they lose to Nova.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but if you look at all the replays and stat of that era, Ewing was just
A beast.
he's just unbelievable. Plus, he created that little shot that he had. Plus, and then he has bad luck in the pros, which I won't even get into because
we don't have to. Yeah, we don't.
But
so you do like UConn. You like UConn and Purdue.
I like UConn and Purdue, and unfortunately, I'm going to be severely biased rooting for Purdue because it's worth so much. And
right.
you can't really hedge because UConn will be the favorite. I played a little bit on UConn with this the weird number that I got. I mean, I've seen it as high as minus 250, minus 270 to win the tournament now. I think most places might have it around 200. I didn't look this morning. I was looking at at baseball instead. But at last night, there was a 170 UConn. So I bought some back. Just I sold back the equity on one of my future tickets. That's all. And you know what else is I do have an Alabama ticket. It was Alabama was 50-1, 52-1, something like that. I actually completely forgot about it because I had about 7 bombs, and the Elite Eight, I had 4 of the bombs live. So we had Duke, Illinois. I don't count Purdue, although Purdue wasn't a bomb, but you get what I mean. At Alabama.
Yep.
So I had 4 of the last 8. So Illinois got crunched, but I didn't do anything with that ticket. I figured if they were going to beat UConn, they'd be live. And then Alabama, I had them, if they beat Clemson, we'll see what happens. So really my UConn buyback is really to offset that, because they're not going to, even if they win, look at Alabama's road. Even if they were to upset UConn, they got to beat Purdue. It's too tough of a road. I'm glad I got this far, and the ticket's worth a little bit more. I do have a women's ticket with South Carolina. I don't like Dawn Staley. I don't like to root for her at all. She's a great coach. I think she's a miserable. She's always miserable. She's never smiling. That's why. What is she doing Aflac commercials for? She doesn't smile enough. I mean, she's like the female version of Gina Ariama.
Always the victim, right? We kind of saw that last night in the other game.
It was always just accurate. But I got a good number on South Carolina. I got a minus 125 pre-tournament, which I thought was good. I figured they'd at least get to the Final Four. They're there now. I had a little bit on
Iowa,
Iowa, but that line was so close, and I just thought that I thought she would take over if it was a close game, and she's
unbelievable.
She's tough. I mean, as good as Reese is, She
Horrible.
can't
No
get it,
adjustments.
but she
No
can't get it
adjustments.
out and guard. Get
No,
out and guard her.
no.
Teams are gonna now. I think UConn women, they're gonna think of something to do. He might play a boxing one or something. But you know what? What's underrated with her watching is, she's a really good passer. She gets
She's like Bird.
penetration.
She's like Bird.
Yeah, she's. I can't see how anybody said she's not going to be good at the next level. Listen, if you stop her from shooting, she's going to get all the other good players in.
You check on Jay Williams. Is he all right?
Yeah, I can't. I don't know if he was just troll because he's actually.
He was dead
He's
serious.
wrong. He's unbelievably wrong here. I wonder. I'm starting to question if like the producers are getting involved and saying, "Yeah, say this," because this seems unlike Jay Williams. I have to admit, he seems to take the contrarian view on a lot of stuff, but this just didn't make sense. Like I'll give you an example. Go all the way back to before the internet and when you had to scour the magazines and you really had to really be into it to realize what was what. And I remember there was a writer, his name was Stu Black. I think he might have been freelancer, he might have wrote for LA. I think he's since passed. But I remember he used to come out with his who will get first off, not who's going to get drafted, who should. And for NBA, and I remember Shaq was a freshman, and he went on Roy Firestone's show, and he said, Roy Firestone asked him, well, it seems a little, who's your top 10 guys? And he had Shaquille O'Neal number one as a freshman. He said, why? He goes, it's not going to happen, but if he comes out, he's gonna go number one. And the reason I bring that up for like context is Jay Williams is the kind of guy that would say, well, how could Shaq go number one? He's not the best player. Larry Johnson's the best player. It's just, well, let's be realistic here. The best player does not have to play on the have a championship. He doesn't. That's not the case. Sure, it was Christian Laettner, probably the best college player that I've ever seen. Yeah, okay, but is there an argument made for how dominant Shaq was? I mean, his junior year, they were just grabbing him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So there's been no player like to compare to her on the men's side that hasn't won. And then I remember why Jay Williams may have said this. It's because he won. He won one. So he doesn't. But you're gonna penalize. I mean, it's like she didn't get close. It doesn't say she didn't get to a Final Four. So is Olajuwon not great? If Olajuwon had broke all the records and he didn't win a championship, if Jordan doesn't hit that shot,
what does that mean? They're less player.
Although it's weird that Jordan lost.
Hey, Magic crushed Bird. I mean, Michigan State destroyed Indiana State, but I mean, that's your perfect.
It's just there's too many holes for his argument. Rationale.
Yeah,
there's too many holes. You can't tell. Maybe he should go one step further and say, listen, in the women's game, it's easier to dominate, but he don't want to say that because he'd get all kinds of headaches. Who was a better player than Elena Delle Donne? She ended up getting. She has the sick sister. She had Lyme disease. She could have went to UConn. She would have won 4 national players of the year.
Went to Delaware.
Yep. She stayed in Delaware. They're closer to the family. And Candace Parker might have been better. I don't even think Shaw Swoops was better than Delle Donne. Delle Donne didn't. She hit threes. I mean,
I watched her in high school and watched her in college closely doing radio in Delaware for years. And she was
who was better than her? I can't imagine.
Fantastic player.
She's an unbelievable player, unbelievable shooter. So what he said is kind of silly. And I almost get the feeling that, they push that to have this kind of argumentative narrative. That's what sells. JJ Redick said, he goes, if I go in and perfectly break down,
right,
why a certain team is doing anything, I get 100,000 clicks. If I say this coach needs to get fired, I get 1 million. Who are we playing to? I think there's a happy medium. That's why I started doing, things with you and things other people have asked me because I just know too much. And at some point, I figured there'd be a market for this for people that maybe weren't around to see Shaq, or maybe they weren't even around to see Larry Johnson, or maybe even, that Duke team I just mentioned. Maybe they don't know how good that 98 Duke team was and how big of the fact that it's not being mentioned, how big of an upset that Calhoun, Connecticut first championship was. That was a tremendously huge upset.
Was that Khalid Al-Amin?
Yeah, my man. The point guard. He was on Dan Patrick. He was going, I'm ripped. And Dan Patrick was saying to him, you need to lose a little weight. He goes, you're crazy. I'm ripped. I mean, it was one of the funniest interviews ever.
All right, so we got Final Four Saturday. Before I let you get out of here, and again, prop from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. You got a little light, if you will, as far as baseball. I know it's a heavy night on the diamond, but anything thus far? We're about a week into the season.
Well, last year we got together before the opening day, and I remember, you had that beautiful, you want to just hug it, Arizona future. It was just a great future. And we picked it, and I nailed a bunch of them. I had a ton of unders because there was so much going on. I wasn't able to get, for people that are looking at or wanting a little bit of advice on the futures. You can still, in about a couple of weeks, they're going to post win totals again. They're not going to be adjusted that much. But I did play Rangers under.
Okay.
The Yankees were right around 90.5 to 91. That's the only over I took. You could make a case for the Yankees 101 or 102, whatever it was. I decided against it because, they could do like the 98 or 99 Yankees did, where they were just an unbelievably good team and they coasted in September. And they ended up winning like 90 games or something because they were so far ahead. And they got in the playoffs. I don't think they lost. I think they swept the pod. I think
they did.
They swept everybody. They just beat the pants off everybody.
Ran through everyone. Yep.
So you don't want that to happen where they're coasting. And there's more of a chance that happening in today's game where you're resting pitchers, you're bringing up all kinds of other arms. You'd rather have a guy,
Oh, the Phillies did it the other day. They didn't want to go to the pen. They were thinking about Saturday's game.
So it definitely exists. You don't want to be in a position where these guys clinch and you're sitting there, waiting until September 30th for them on the 103rd game. Because especially the Dodgers, because of what's happened to them in the playoffs last few years. I didn't play Atlanta's over, but I did have Atlanta in the first two games against the Phillies. I didn't think they'd win by that much, but I do. The other under, I have a prop that the White Sox would have the worst record. They'll be worse than the A's, basically, is what you're rooting against. I have Mets under. That's
a good play because when they struggle, they're going to trade Alonso.
I think so. I have the Mets under, but I think the balls this one was the Texas under. Arizona was close. It was like, because they're sitting around 84 and a half. I almost took the Phillies under. Now, I took it last year and I lost. I thought it was a little high, but it's right where it should be, I guess. It was right around 88 and a half, 89. And people were high on St. Louis, and I took under in St. Louis. And they're a team I'm going to be looking to get them situationally, but I'm going to be playing them. I got a feeling a lot at home. I think they're a little overrated, and I think the Brewers are a little underrated preseason wise. I just think that you're going to be able to get, if St. Louis is at home playing, some of the middle tier teams, and they're going to be throwing their third best pitcher, and they're laying 152 or 147. It's just too much. It just it's tough to offer that kind of advice in baseball because it's really gray.
Yeah.
But I do think if there's going to be any team that will will be having some overlays. It could be the Cardinals. Now, they could catch fire. The season's so long. It's a game of, you could win. You could go 9-2 and then 4-6 and 4-6. What you hope for is that team that's constantly 4-6 and 5-5, and they're laying 140, and you're playing the dog. Cleveland's interesting this year to really keep your eye on totals because they don't hit, and if they pitch even a little bit well, you're going to see a lot of 7s and 7.5s, and those games are going to be 5-1, 4-2, 3-0. Again, it's tough right now in April, but when we talk again in May, I'll have a more clear picture of what I'm going to be focusing on. And I do have a future. It was a weird future. I don't know if you saw this. Judge's future for home runs was 45. There were 44.5. Isn't that high? Like, doesn't he get? Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't he get hurt every year?
He's going to get hurt. Like, it's like Embiid playing 60 games and you can't go with the MVP vote. Yeah.
I do have a few bombs for MVP, but I did play some on Juan Soto to win MVP because I'm also biased. It's not really the number. I just think I think he's a great player.
Yeah, and in that ballpark too.
And that ballpark. And I spoke to somebody who is an ex-major leaguer, and his son is up and coming. And I'll tell you off air who it is. But it's a guy, he had more than a cup of coffee. He wasn't an all-star, but this guy came up, and he does a training facility. We were talking, and he said that Juan Soto's wanted to be a Yankee since he was a kid. I haven't read it anywhere. And I said, why? He goes, yeah. All he ever said was, oh, we're playing for the Yankees. We're playing for the Yankees. That is a big deal. You get a guy from the Dominican who's that good, who really wants to play for, and he's not even thinking about, hey, I can hit the ball.
Yeah.
The defense is really short. Now, his total was 36. Richie, what do you think about that?
I would over. I think he's going to hit 40 plus.
But I'd like over. Now, I didn't play for a lot. I played under. The Trout hits 2 yesterday. I have under 31 in his homers. So I have under Trout. I have under in Judge. I have under with Trey Turner.
Okay.
Trey Turner had a weird number. He's only hit more than 23 homers once. His number was like 23.5 juiced the other way. Close. It's going to be close. Besides the Judge number, the Giancarlo Stanton number was 27.5.
Yeah, I would have played the under because he's going to miss 40 games.
I did. But it's weird. He might hit 27. It might land like 27. He might have like 200 strikeouts at 27. But those, and then the other ones, I took a couple bombs on Freddie Freeman to do something. When the batting touch, something like that. I think his over and hits was good. And then outside of that, you really could take some bombs with Cy Young, but I think they'll be there in a month. Somebody that might have been 80-1 or 91. Gotcha. That might come down, but a lot of those don't win. But there it is. Perfect. And we'll talk more about that, and hopefully Purdue championship next week.
Yeah, look forward to it as always. Don't forget, follow the prop on X at Professor Shine and his appearance in today's show. As always, BYP brought to you by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemens Road, Deptford, New Jersey, the Plaza at Deptford. Give them a call, 856-579-8250. They are open 7 days a week. They are open Monday to Friday, 10 to 8, Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 6, 10 to 5. Also call for store hours. And we mentioned all the golf equipment.
Real quick, Rich, you want to,
yes,
next
sir.
Week next week we'll talk about the NBA.
No, we got to get into the NBA, and we got the draft coming
up
as well.
We'll have to look at our futures, and if you make the play-in, that's not the playoffs.
Right. Correct.
To check your ticket. You're playing to get into the playoffs. That's right.
Which is Bush League, but whatever. Yes.
It is Bush League, but I have a bomb with the Sixers not to make it.
Yes, I know. So we need to go the opposite way.
And play in? We'll see.
Shut down Embiid. All right, Prop. Always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
Awesome.